Welcome, everybody, to day one of the 21-day Love and Abundance Challenge. I want to start by acknowledging something important. If you're here, it's not by accident. Something inside of you knows that you're ready for more love, more abundance, more ease, and more alignment in your life. This challenge isn't about wishful thinking or hoping that life gets better. It's about stepping into the driver's seat and actively creating the version of yourself who attracts love, wealth, and success effortlessly. Over the next 21 days, we're going to dive into identity shifts, subconscious rewiring, and tangible actions that will help you break through limitations and fully embody the most magnetic and abundant version of yourself. You'll hear from powerful speakers and experts who have mastered this transformation themselves and openly admit that this journey never ends, as they are still learning too. People who are exactly where you were, but took the necessary steps to evolve into a life that feels truly aligned for them. Your job over the next 21 days is to stay present, show up for yourself, do the work, and trust the process. So let's begin. Drop abundance in the chat in the comments if you're ready to step into your next level life, and let's make this one of the most powerful transformations you've ever experienced. And with that, Kristina Furia, welcome to the 21-day Love and Abundance Challenge. I almost said the Blueprint Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So tell everybody who you are and who you help.
Absolutely. So my name is Kristina Furia. I have a master's degree in clinical and counseling psychology. However, I now work as a transformational coach after working as a therapist primarily for about a decade. Been 5-6 years now that I am in the coaching space. And really the reason I made that shift, I made that transition, is because I realized that there are more efficient ways to help people than the way that I was practicing as a therapist. And two, because I love to see people create lives that really light them up, that really just feel good existing inside of. So that is really what I do. And that is the person that I help. I help the person who is really ready to claim that next chapter, to claim that new version of themselves that is able to welcome in more of the goodness that life has to offer without skipping any of the inevitable difficult things that still come our way.
It's such a wonderful process when you transition to doing new things and recognizing that we also tend to help the person that we used to be. We're better equipped to help in those areas. I look back on my life and the things that I've experienced through crime scene and the different things that I saw as a police officer. And I look at the challenges and the difficulties and the strain and the strife that people go through. And you recognize very quickly that all of us are going through something. And I think it's hard sometimes for us to acknowledge what other people might be going through. And that can be a challenge a lot of times. I think we struggle in that area with trying to interact with the people in our lives and cut them a little slack sometimes. So I want to thank you for being here and for sharing that with us. We'll dive into the first question. Your work focuses on identity shifting into a higher frequency of self. Can you walk us through what it actually looks like to embody a new frequency of love and abundance in everyday life?
I think the first thing is really decision. There is so much power in simply deciding for what you want. Lots of us get involved, we get a little bit invested in the personal development space and just the idea of working on ourselves, but we're kind of like, we're straddling two different lives. One is, oh, I keep things the same. And the other one is, I move into change, I move into transformations. And the result of that is our energy, which I talk a lot about energy in my work, it isn't fully directed. It's not like moving us forward. And so a really powerful way to begin stepping into a new way of being, to begin creating a new way of life, in this case, in the context of love and abundance, is to really find that place of decision. I have decided within myself that I'm going forward in this new way of being. I decided within myself that change is happening, that I'm doing this, that I'm really claiming a new way of being. And then from there, I think it becomes about identifying the specifics of what you want life to look like. So it's okay. I want more love and abundance. How does that actually look and feel for me? Placing yourself into a future reality where you've already become that new version of yourself. Actually getting a sense of you, getting a sense of that future you. If I were more abundant, how would I feel? If I welcomed in more love, be it self-love or love in relationships, how would that feel? How would I feel? How would I exist as that version of me? And then once you get clear on that, the feeling state, the kind of creating, it's like almost creating a little bit of a sort of a memory of what it feels like, even though you haven't lived it yet. If you spend enough time with it, it almost starts to be logged like that. And then you come back into the present moment. And from the present moment, you now can start working on becoming that person little by little, inching your way into that idea that you have in the future. So it's a process of over time bridging the gap between now this imagined life, this imagined version of yourself, and all of those feelings that you've gotten in touch with and where you are right now. And so it becomes about small conscious choices, small corrections, made little by little over time.
Do you have an exercise for visualization that would go along with this?
Admittedly, I'm just naturally somebody who visualizes really well.
Right.
So,
I think for most of us, if you were an athlete, you learn to do that, and it's like second nature at this point.
Yep, totally. If you're an athlete, you do have a bit of an advantage. Actually, I'm not, but yeah, I think for some people it actually does come naturally, which is always nice. So if it doesn't come naturally for you, it's a little bit of a different answer. It's a bit more perhaps technical, something that would need to be talked about in a setting that's not this one. But if you at least experience yourself as having average visualization skills, or if you're not quite sure, this is a great starting point. And really, it is to not overthink it. Yep, as humans, we are naturally imaginative. When we're kids, we use our imaginations all the time. It is like built into the human experience. So, as adults, obviously our minds do work differently, but we still have those same general abilities. Imagination is just a built-in mental faculty. So, without overthinking it, it's just placing yourself into what you desire. It's like truly just honing in on something specific. So in this case, like I'm honing in on, you might separate them out. I'm honing in on what it would be like to be a more loving version of myself, to welcome in more love and to give more love. Kind of honing in on that idea. And then it's really just from a calm mental state, calm physical state even as well, closing your eyes and just kind of seeing what you can create. Just trusting the natural intelligence of your mind to just start creating. What do I see? What do I feel? What's available to me? And then if it feels aligned, you can go back and forth between visualizing and then writing stuff down just so it becomes a little bit more grounded and anchored. And then you go back inward. What do I see? What am I feeling? What am I creating within myself? And then you write it down. And it can just be this kind of almost like casual process where you just trust yourself to find whatever is meant to avail itself to you in that process.
What I think
Also
is
knowing that you can do it again and again. You don't need to like do it once and trust it has to be perfect. Nope. I can return to this. I can keep visualizing over time. Just always trust that you'll find whatever you need in that moment.
so for me, it's interesting because I'll see it from a third party perspective. I think about that future version of me, but it's not me. It's just that version. So I start to picture what am I doing and how do I act and how do I feel and what are the experiences I'm having and do I have a certain level of confidence or capability or competence in what I'm doing that led me to get to that place. It's you're free floating and just observing. How does that? I admire that. I would like to have that for me. And you slowly allow yourself to float into that person. It's this visual process for me because I'm a visual learner. So it's just so then as you allow yourself to float into that new avatar that's you in the future, you allow yourself to have that experience and to feel it going throughout your entire body. You start to wire it into your nervous system. What is this? This feels like confidence and it feels like strength and ability and competence and excitement and passion and joy and all these different thoughts, feelings, and emotions that right now can seem a little bit far away. Like I might not be experiencing those, and some of those I may never have experienced. So I'm really hoping and wishing to tap into that into the future But you can allow yourself to begin to feel that now just by making yourself that third party and then entering into the avatar and allowing yourself to have those emotions. The other part that you mentioned that I think is great is the aspect of writing it down. When you read all the books, The Secret and Think and Grow Rich, they talk about that, where as you continue to write these things down, maybe you can explain this further, but what is it that happens when you write things down in your brain that allows these things to begin to come to fruition for you?
Basically, when we write things down, it logs in the brain differently. So when we think something versus say something versus read something versus write something, it's always recording in the brain in a slightly different way. So basically, the idea is to do all of that. Think it, say it, write it, read it after you write it. And it's getting it to record and log in all of the ways that it possibly can. And then the more you review it, the more you bring it to life through, you can keep writing it, keep reading it. The more you bring it to life, the more you are, in fact, bringing it into reality ultimately. So it's just a really simplistic but very powerful tool. I forget what the exact percentages, but it's something really substantial. Basically, if you write down your goals, if you write down kind of the vision for who you're desiring to become, what you're desiring to create in life, it's X% more likely to actually happen. I wish I could remember the percentage off the top of my head, but it's definitely like upwards of 60%, could possibly be into the 80s or 90s. It's a huge difference. This is anchoring in truth and it's moving me forward.
Yeah, even anecdotally, I can 100% agree with that because it's been such a powerful shift in my own life with just being able to write things down. And it started with some simple journaling. You start with a little bit of gratitude, and that gets old really fast. I'm thankful for air. Thank you for the air. It's great. And then that gets tiring after a while because you're like, what else am I thankful for? What am I grateful for? Then I shifted into something a little more complicated, which was reading the Daily Stoic Journal, which maybe that's not for everybody. There's so many different ways to journal, but this spoke to me at a time in my life when I needed it the most. So you go through and it's got the ancient philosophers writing, and then underneath of that is Ryan Holiday's writing on what he believes that passage is saying, but he relates it to modern times. And there's a separate book where they have morning and evening prompts. So you think about that prompt in the morning and you write your morning journaling out. And then you think about it all day and you come back in the evening and then you write about it again. I did that for 2 years. And what an amazing experience it was because I realized I stopped overthinking. I wasn't struggling as much in my own thought process. I really seemed to wire in the things that I believe in, that I know more about who I am as a person, where I'm going, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And my confidence started to grow. So it's just like, what a cool thing that you can do just by grabbing a $1 notebook and a pen and just start writing to figure yourself out. It's amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, Christina asked, do you recommend rewriting every day? I don't necessarily think you need to rewrite the same thing every day. That's certainly one option. If you're working on like something very specific, I often work with my clients around a specific vision for the life they want to create. Reading it every day is definitely something you want to do. Rewriting it often is very valuable. But to Jason's point, just writing every day in a way that is really directing your energy forward, it's very powerful. For the first 2 years, actually, as well, for me, that I was on this journey, I wrote affirmations every single morning while I was still laying in bed. It's like capturing the power of what I like to call the morning brain. Your brain's very malleable to change when you first wake up. So laying in bed, could reach for my notebook from the bedside and I would write for 5-10 minutes affirmations, 7 days a week without fail. And same thing you just said, Jason, it changed the way I felt about myself over time. I did become more confident of myself. So yeah, writing is just truly a power tool.
Yeah. And then you find yourself just not tolerating certain things anymore and accepting certain things into your life. Like you start to have better boundaries. And there's a lot of other things that come along with you in that process. Now, what does it
Yeah.
mean to shift frequencies? We often talk about vibration and frequency, but I'm just curious what it means to actually be shifting our frequency.
Okay. So really quick, just like science lesson on this without
Okay.
going deep into it. What we're actually referring to when we talk about our frequency is what's happening within our cells on the smallest of levels. So deep within every cell in your body is actually energy. So this isn't just like a concept. This is a matter of your physiology. So deep within every cell, there is energy, and that energy is always in motion. And so your frequency refers to the frequency, the rate or speed at which that energy is moving. So when we talk about changing our frequency, what we're really talking about is moving that energy more quickly. How could that energy inside of me move at a faster pace so that I feel better, so that people actually even receive me in a different way and kind of in a better way, because I am this like lighter being. And how do I, as a result of that, then end up naturally changing my life for the better as well? So that really is, that's like the crux of what it means to shift your frequency or raise your frequency. It is not a concept. It's actually something that's happening in the body on a physiological level, which I find to be so important because it just makes it feel more real. It's, yep, this is something I'm actually doing. I'm not just like playing around with something that's a bit elusive. This is something I'm actually doing in my body. And I know if I'm doing it effectively or not because I either feel good or I don't. I either have excellent health, it's a huge part of raising your frequency, or I don't. I'm either seeing meaningful change in my external life or I'm not.
And a lot of people hit you with, oh, that's just that woo spiritual nonsense. And it's, if you think about it, when was the last time you entered into a room where you were like, it just doesn't feel good in here. I don't like this. There's a group of people, maybe you went into a meeting or wherever you are, usually in a workplace environment is where you're going to be able to sense this the most because there's so many different personalities and experiences and problems and issues and concerns that as you go around, you can begin to feel and sense what people are going through or what they're experiencing. Now, you can't know what they're experiencing, but you know that there's an energy there because you feel it. You'll say that everybody just always seems angry all the time, and it's, are they angry? Maybe. You could be sensing something, or they could be in a fear state, or there could be other things that are going on, but you're acknowledging in that moment that something is off. And the other thing that you'll notice is that, like you said, when you are lighter in your own experience, and you raise your frequency and you interact with other people, a lot of times we'll say, I'm angry at this and I don't like this person, I don't like that person. But when you start showing up differently, when you start treating people differently because you're in a much higher frequency and lighter experience, they receive you differently and they'll respond to you differently. So we talk about this a lot with, anxious attachment. I always say it all starts with you, the individual. And if we can get to the place where we recognize that it starts with us, then we can start to take our power back from all the different places that we outsource it. And when you do that, you show up differently. You feel more capable, you feel more competent and confident in who you are as a person, and you're no longer chasing and trying to get something. You're just accepting and allowing. And that's a completely different way to show up in a relationship with somebody. And that creates enough of a space for the other person to show up as more of who they are instead of feeling like they are being chased or pushed out.
Mm, yeah, beautifully said. I love all of
Thanks. I appreciate that. I've done a lot of thinking on that. It's just like, it's so, because everybody hits me in my comment section, especially on Instagram, where they're so angry with their avoidant partner. And, again, I always make it a point in my videos to say, I'm not blaming you. This is just an awareness of you. When we show up differently, when we act differently, when we pull back our energy from experiences that just aren't giving us the expectation that we have of it, and we recognize that our expectations are premeditated resentments, you begin to now give yourself all this wisdom and knowledge of what it means to cultivate a healthy relationship. And you recognize that, okay, I need to set some better boundaries for myself because this is not what I want to continue to experience. And in order for that to happen, something has to change. And we always say, you have to change because you're the problem here. And it's, but you're a co-creator, you're in this with them. And so we create the conditions of our relationships, usually rooted from our past experiences. We bring that along with us as we try to solve our lifelong and epigenetic problems. And we repeat this process over and over with different people until we recognize that it really does start with you. And you have to pull back that energy and start focusing on you and making yourself a priority, which is the whole point to these types of challenges, to get us to that place where I love myself enough that I'm prepared to make myself a priority again, or maybe for the first time.
yeah.
So this is always a good one. The topic on this is releasing attachments and emotional loops. A lot of people are stuck in emotional loops of scarcity, unworthiness, and fear. How can someone break free from these patterns and shift their inner narrative for good?
Mm, Yeah, such a good question, such an important question.
Yeah.
This, for me, the process that I teach comes down to what's called quantum healing. And this connects with the idea that we live in a reality where even though we experience the time as linear, in other words, one moment follows the next, we can also, that's how we're experiencing it. But really, time is nonlinear. So we can also access past versions of ourselves. So the versions of ourselves that originally went through either the experience or the kind of ongoing pattern of just treatment, usually from like parents, caregivers, loved ones, what have you, you can access that past version of self and create healing right there at the level of the past self, and then move it forward throughout time to all the other versions, all the way through to the present stuff. So it's the idea of quantum healing. We heal from the roots. And this is a really powerful way of creating change, because now we're not just doing the like surface level present moment work where it's like, just keep overriding that thought and this thought and that thought. Oh, and that didn't feel good. Let's like try and ignore that one. It's
That's every
actually
day.
making it so something different is present within me. Something different at my core exists. I have a different set of beliefs about myself and what I'm worthy of, what I'm capable of. It actually is deeply rooted within the self. And therefore, you feel different, you think different, and you function differently. By the way, the exact process for this, as I said, it's called quantum healing. It's something that is ultimately I created as a result of my years of experience as a therapist. It is a bit of a unique process. It's a little too intense to share kind of the details of here, but if anybody is interested, I definitely invite you to check my work out a little bit more deeply, and then you can start doing it yourself again and again, because ultimately there are many different areas that you'll want to use this in. You can find the different memories throughout life where it's like, oh, here's a little bit of unworthiness. Here's a little bit of scarcity. Here's a little bit of fearfulness. Here's like a whole pattern throughout childhood because my mother always did this thing. And then you can start applying it to everything.
Yeah, I didn't know that's what I was doing when I was doing this stuff. You discover things along the way on your own. And it started with meditation, but then while I was in the meditation, I'm like, let's see if I can think back to a particular time that bothered me the most and begin to manipulate it and change it or integrate it or have an experience with it or challenge it or reauthor the story, not by lying to yourself, but by seeing it through the eyes that you have now as an adult that has empathy and compassion and understanding and the language that you just didn't have then. So I would sit there, lay there in meditation, knees up, and I had my little neck pillow thing. And have you seen those? It looks like a wave, so you can get some traction on your neck. And I'd have some binaural beats in my ears, and I'm going through, and I'm literally like, I'm back in this past experience, and I'm seeing it again from that third party perspective. And then you're just alongside the different version of you, almost like that guardian angel. And I know some of this sounds a little bit woo, it's different than a lot of us would probably start to think. But as you dive into some of these things, this is what I just found worked for me. And it's a framework that I just started using. Nobody told me to do it. It's just something I discovered for myself. And for me, that started to work. And I found a lot of benefit from it. And it is interesting. Now, I think a lot of people would probably call that inner child healing for a lot of it, depending on obviously what age that you are and you're trying to navigate certain things. Something to check out, especially if you're interested in that kind of stuff. And if you're looking for a word that you would look up on the internet, it would be shadow work, would be another one that would go with that.
Yeah, I know this also, at least in terms of the way I conduct this sort of healing work with the folks I support. Also connects with, I'm not sure if you're familiar, Jason, with this internal family systems.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the idea that we can again access these like different past versions of self, these different parts of ourselves, and create profound healing. And it really is very beautiful. And while, yes, it can sound a bit sort of woo-woo, when you really get into the practice of it, oh, this is just so effective and functional. It's not woo-woo at all. It's simply an efficient means of healing that is outside the box of what we've known about so far.
Yeah, it can also feel daunting and overwhelming just even thinking about it. I don't even know how to get from here to there, but that's the whole point of working with someone like Christina, because she's able to help guide you through that process. Now, many people struggle to attract both healthy relationships and financial success. What is the core energetic block that keeps people stuck in scarcity in both areas?
Great question. Yeah, I think that there are two actually core energetic blocks, with the first one really being, again, unworthiness. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And if the second one being usually for most of us, a deeply rooted belief that there's simply not enough. There's not enough love, there's not enough abundance. So the unworthiness piece relates to what we just spoke about regarding healing from the roots, really coming to an understanding of what are the origins of this feeling of unworthiness that I have? How did it come to be? And then, of course, choosing that healing path and over time, kind of piece by piece, removing the energetic block. As far as the belief that there's not enough, this is so important to work with because this is really like it's a worldview. We've all been conditioned to hold this specific worldview based on what it's like being a human on Earth. We all know, we all have grown up and become adults knowing that there's not enough, right? Some of us don't have enough. Some of us don't have enough money. Some
Money
of us
doesn't
don't have
grow on
enough.
trees.
Money doesn't grow on trees. My parents always said that to me. It was almost like this normal thing. We can go on and on with this. We live in the experience of lack. So a huge part of clearing an energetic block that keeps us in scarcity is actually zooming out, taking a perspective even further out than what we might think of as the world view, and attuning to the universe view. And the universe view is we live in an abundant universe. We live in a universe where abundance and love are not just plentiful, but they're actually limitless. So it's actually over time attuning yourself to a different perception, a different perspective of reality as we know it. And that's a huge, important way of beginning to clear that energetic block out. And as a result, welcoming in much, much more love and much, much more abundance.
Yeah, there's another part to this where we have a lot of people that are like in that hustle culture where they're just endlessly grinding. And that also comes from this place of lack. And we don't realize it because you'll have some success, you're doing well, things are going well overall, but you're in this place where you're constantly on the hamster wheel and you can't get yourself off of it. Because if you stop, there's this deep seated fear that it's going to be taken away, you're going to lose it, something's going to happen to it, it's not going to be as abundant as it has been in the past, that something bad is going to happen. How can we shift out of that experience of being on the hamster wheel and that fear that something's going to be taken away?
Yeah. We talked a little bit. I don't know if you're going to ask me another question about hustle culture in a minute, but I know that's on your list. What kind of comes to mind for me, though, as you're asking this specific question, is the presence of urgency, the role of urgency in our experience. We often live from this place of everything is a rush, as you said, like hustle culture. Everything is really quite urgent. I'm in an urgent state of needing more love, needing more money, needing to feel better. It's all very urgent. The energy is it's very rushed. And that really does align us with the experience of something like fear. It aligns us with all kinds of contractive experiences, doubt, worry, uncertainty, lack of trust. And so a huge part of what we can do is actually slowing ourselves down, realizing that life is a journey. Even the process of creating more of what we desire is a journey. It's not something that we need to create today so that everything's okay. There's actually something to be said for existing in the process, for allowing the process to really serve us, to serve us in our learning, to serve us in the experiencing of all of our emotions, and yeah, truly just to get the lessons.
A big part of it for me is worthiness. It's been hard to identify. We only ever accept the type of love or experience that we think that we're worthy of. So even if it's a poor experience, it's just that's the way life is. That's the way my life is. That's the way it's always been. It's never going to change. This is my experience. How can we tap into and upgrade our worthiness thermostat?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna find what I wrote down about this because there's something in particular. So I need to make sure I say this. Got off track with where we are here.
Yeah, I skipped some questions.
Oh, you did? Okay, I thought I just wasn't keeping good track.
No, you're answering multiple questions at once. I had to skip around.
Gotcha. Okay. So much of this work, it really does relate to healing. And obviously, we all know that, but something that I have found over the years, really specifically as I transition from therapist into coach, which I really think of being a process of gaining efficacy and efficiency, it is realizing that healing doesn't need to be. So I was originally trained in what we would call psychoanalytic therapy. And really, that idea is like healing goes on for your whole life, which in a way it, of course, does. And you'll just always be in this state of, I'm healing. And again, there's some truth to that, but we also want to harness those feel good moments. We also want to connect with those really rich experiences of life. So we can't just like consistently be in this place of I am a person who heals because life has so many other things. And so for me, getting back to this idea of efficiency, it really comes down to finding the key moments and the key patterns where unworthiness or just low self-worth got wired in. And so a lot of times this is going to relate to our parental relationships. Oftentimes it can become even as specific as the maternal relationship, the relationship that we have with our mothers. But it's really about getting super honed in, dialed in, rather than being like, I don't know, I'm unworthy and I'm 38 years old. Let me start at the beginning and work my way up to 38. I guess there's a place for that. But in the interest of enjoying life and experiencing all the richness that life has for us to experience and receive, we want to get, as I said, really specific. So it's honing in. What are the patterns that built in low self-worth? What are the key moments that built in low self-worth? For example, you might know that you were 15 years old, like somebody really had you convinced that they liked you and they wanted to be with you, but really they're like toying with you and they pulled the rug out from under you and it was embarrassing. And now there's this wound that still exists, whatever it might be. Going to be a combination of I'm looking for the specific patterns. Usually, as I said, they relate to parental relationships. And then I'm looking for specific key memories. They don't just have to have happened in your early life. Ages 0 to 12 are specific or are especially, I should say, consequential just because our sort of self view and our egos are being developed just in such a substantial way during that time. We always want to look there just as a matter of course, but really it could be any time throughout our lives. Like when I did this work, I realized that something happened to me when I was like 22, 23 that was hugely impactful. So really we want to look at the whole life trajectory, but we want to get specific enough that we're not just, yeah, the whole thing. Nope, we are honing in so that we can be really efficient about turning up that dial on the worthiness thermostat, as Jason puts it.
No, I love that. And when we talk about healing as a lifetime journey, what we're really talking about is capacity. And it's that capacity for uncertainty and discomfort. And over long periods of time, you give yourself the tools. So we'll use breath work and journaling and going for walks and exercise and movement and yoga and writing and all the things. When you do that consistently over long periods of time, you begin to find that the things where you used to get triggered or aggravated or activated, you spend less time in those experiences. Maybe you spent like a week spinning out, and as the time goes on, you find that maybe it's an hour. You recognize, oh, well, that really got to me. And then you take a breath and you work it through and you use the tools that you have and you've created this capacity so that you've got yourself, that you're safe, that you're okay, and you're good. And you continue to move on with your life. So, in that regard, I absolutely love that because it gives you the opportunity and the space to find the joy in the moment. So, yes, healing, sure, it lasts forever. Why not? But you also have to recognize that while you're in the process of healing for your entire life is still happening and there's still all these beautiful moments and joy that are accessible to you. So, don't forget to look for those too. Many people unconsciously fear getting what they want because it requires new levels of responsibility and self image shifts. That's something that I've gone through recently. How do we overcome this?
Yeah. So ultimately, we overcome this by making the unconscious conscious. We learn about what we fear and in and of itself, what makes it scary, so that then it naturally. So, in other words, by bringing the unconscious to light, it just changes things. You can almost think of it as shadow to light. When something's lurking in the shadows, it is inherently scary. And then once it comes out into the light, a lot of times it's like, oh, okay, this isn't that scary. It looks scary because it was hidden in the shadow. So when we bring it to light, when we make what's unconscious conscious, just naturally, it's just, okay, cool. This is a shift into something different. This is less scary. And as we do that, there's this natural, just inherent change in how we feel and how we perceive just what we're working on and ourselves. And of course, the fear itself.
Yeah. I had to make a pivot in life. I've made a lot of pivots in life. So it's like I went from to police officer to now content creation and podcaster. What's interesting about that is when you begin to believe in yourself and that you start using your story to help other people and you start building out all the different videos and the things that we work on, there's that part of you that has to be seen. You've never really been seen before because you're sharing personal experiences and anecdotal experiences and things that you've gone through and that you've worked on, and you hope that people find value in that. You're allowing the world in behind the curtain that even some of your closest friends and family, they haven't seen that version of you or those parts of you. And then on top of that, you start hitting success. And so things are going well. And now there's 640,000 followers out there that follow the content. And that's amazing. And I love that. But then you know that you have to make another pivot. You have to make a shift. And part of that shift is, should I stay or should I grow? Should I just stay where I'm at and doing what I'm doing and play it safe in this current role and experience that I have? Or should I start pushing forward into the unknown and start building this out into something bigger? With that comes a little bit of additional fear or excitement or trepidation or just concern for the potential of what could happen. And so, long story short, guys, I said yes to starting to go on other people's podcasts because that's going to be the next big thing for me in terms of growing the coaching business and, of course, expanding the social media aspect of this. But when you do that, you're giving over control to someone else wholly and completely. And as you can tell from being on the other end here, some of this stuff can be a little nerve wracking. You're like, what are they going to ask? What are they going to say? What are they going to do? How are they going to edit it? What is it going to look like? Did I say the wrong thing? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Hey, I'm going to email you later and you should probably delete this part out. Stuff like that. But that's not how it works because most people don't edit their stuff in the way that I do. So you're just like, you're putting it out there and people are going to receive it, and how they receive it, you don't have any control over it. And I think that's like the biggest, it's not a realization. We know this, but you have to admit to yourself that you're not in control. So show up, have fun, be yourself, enjoy the company, have a good conversation, let it be something that helps other people, and keep on going. And then just don't watch it afterwards.
No, no. And go easy on yourself. Like, we all do things sometimes. We all don't get it exactly quite right sometimes. And it's okay. I'm still like worthy of enjoying and appreciating who I am.
Yeah, the ADHD kicks in, and then you're like on a complete, like you're talking, you lose it. You're in a completely different space, having a different conversation with yourself, and you're supposed to be having this conversation. Oh God, what are we doing? What's the biggest misconception people have about manifestation, healing, or other personal growth that keeps them stuck?
Yeah, so I love this question, and I decided to just specifically hone in on the manifestation piece. 5, 6 years ago, I actually talked about manifestation all the time. I really used that word. And it was mainly because I just knew that it was going to like catch eyes and it was going to get attention. What does this mean? It was like a slightly less known then, at least in like the social media, personal development space. And I loved talking about it and I loved engaging people in these types of conversations about manifestation. However, over the years of being a content creator and coaching people through these processes, I actually stopped using that word as much. Yes, certainly there's like a place for it, but I stopped using that word as much because to speak to the big misconception, people tend to think, for some people it's conscious and for some people it's subconscious or unconscious, but that it's like this instantaneous thing. One day it's just going to be like, poof, now I have what I want. And then that leads to a secondary experience of feeling that you're failing if and when it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And that ends up being really damaging because the bottom line is a lot of people who are working with a traditional manifestation process, they zoom way out with what they want, which is beautiful. We want that. We want to get in touch with what we really want. But a lot of people are encouraged to go really big. I want this really big thing. And then we're going to work on it through manifestation. And then 6 months passes, a year passes, it hasn't happened. And so now, rather than being in this process of personal development, we've actually started in a kind of sometimes quiet way, engaging in a little bit of like personal degradation because we're like, I suck, I failed, I didn't do it, I'm supposed to do it, I paid for this course, I read these books, I did these different things. It didn't happen. Just address that to just offer what to do instead. Obviously, feel free to use whatever language aligns, but I really love saying, I am working on becoming an energetic match for what I want. I'm working on healing the parts of me that are not yet aligned with what I desire. I'm learning to treat my body, to upgrade my moods, and to upgrade my thoughts in a way that is going to make me a match energetically for what I desire. And that to me is more aligned with what really happens for most of us. I'm not going to say that there aren't moments where it's like, wow, I manifested something and it was huge and it did feel magical. I actually had some of those moments. But more often than not, it's I'm working on myself. I'm engaging in a process of personal growth that over time has changed me and therefore changed what I am energetically aligned or matched with.
I love that. It's interesting because there's so many people that talk about The Secret. They talk about the master key system. They talk about the magic of thinking big. I have all these books. And so they discuss this, but what they don't tell you is it happened tomorrow, 10 years later. So it's like they were building on to each part of their life in all the different areas of their life. They were building the habits that were necessary, like you said, to become the person that you know that you're capable of becoming. It's something in my videos that I repeat over and over again. Your sole purpose here is to become who you're capable of becoming. Now, who are you capable of becoming? I don't know. That's for you to start to figure out and for you to have that target and that sight picture in the future of what it is that you want, where are you going, what are you doing, why are you doing it? And we work to figure all of these things out over long periods of time. And sometimes the other part of that I love is that you can't get fixed on a story. So there's going to be any number of paths that you could potentially take to become that person that you're capable of becoming, but you have to be open to pivoting and shifting and taking in new information and understanding that it's not going to be this magical fairy tale story that you tell yourself of exactly how it's going to happen. Now, some people, they'll tell you the story, that's how it happened, but reality is you generally have you raise your vibration, you become a different person, you become more capable, competent, and confident in who you are. You begin to network with new and different people, and all of these new things start coming into your life because now you can see above the barrier that used to be there, and you recognize that, oh, I can get there. I didn't even know that was available to me. But it's because you believed enough in yourself to start making the necessary changes.
Mhm. Yeah, and inherent in that is really just the sort of slightly cliche idea, but very relevant, that life is a journey, right? Life is a journey. We're not just like rushing to some specific finish line. It's about the process. It's about the journey.
Speaking of the finish line, we are at the last question. So, if you boil down everything you teach into 3 non negotiable daily habits, what would they be?
So I gave this question some thought because it's okay. There are a bunch of different ways this can go. And obviously, I want to give you guys the most real and just also like most easily applicable answers that are going to lead you somewhere. So before I give you what they are, I'll just name again, which hopefully is strongly implied right now. Love and abundance are states of being. So it really comes down to who you're being on a moment by moment basis rather than just a specific practice you engage in occasionally. And yes, we do need the practices too. We talked earlier about, just to give a for instance, about the power of visualization. Yeah, we want to do those practices. We want to listen to the subconscious, like rewiring meditations that help us with abundance. We want to do all of those things like that. But really, what it comes down to, if we're going to talk about the 3 non-negotiables, because love and abundance are states of being, we really need to look at, in fact, who we are being throughout the day. So the first thing, daily intention. We can't just wake up and start the day in a state of low consciousness. We're just kind of autopiloting our way through. We need to choose daily intention. I've woken up. Who am I choosing to be today? What is important? I love that question. What's important today? What matters today? And really allowing intention to drive us forward. This is something, again, you could do in written form at the start of each day, or it could just be a really quick check-in when you wake up. Okay, new day. What's my intention for who I'm being today? That's the first one. These all kind of build on each other. The second thing is staying conscious throughout the day, attuning to who you're being. What am I thinking about? How am I feeling? How am I behaving? What am I allowing in? What am I not? So really being attuned. Who am I being? What am I choosing? And as you do this over time, you become more and more aware. And then that leads to number 3. So number 1 is daily intention. Number 2 is staying conscious, practicing self-awareness. And then the third one is really becoming empowered to make new choices, both mentally and behaviorally. I'm empowered to notice I am thinking this really low vibrational thought. What can I do to change it? I'm empowered to notice that I just spoke in a way that's like really cranky or just a little bit rude, whatever it might be. I'm noticing this and I'm choosing to pause myself and make a new decision to actually reach for the new way of being, even though it might not feel, and probably doesn't, habitual. It doesn't feel like my kind of usual standard way of being. I'm choosing to reach for it anyway. I'm choosing the new fit. So it's daily intention, staying conscious or having self-awareness. And then 3, making those new choices so that over time you become that upgraded version of yourself, that different version of yourself.
I love it. So we're going to open this up, guys, to questions. Tessa says, do you both feel technology has contributed to the concept of instant gratification, of manifestation, or the stories we are creating for our future?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's undeniably true, right? It's like technology is amazing and it's created
Yeah.
so many advancements in who we are as humans. I have a 9-year-old nephew and he's just so smart. He is just full of knowledge. It's not just like, oh yeah, this kid has a high IQ. It's like this kid knows stuff. He has all kinds of information that in the 80s and 90s when we were kids or young adults, whatever it would have been, we would have had to like really go out and get. I need to go to the library and get the encyclopedia. Or it's just information that's like not available. This is now at children's fingertips. It's at all of our fingertips. So Technology is incredible, and it is certainly a huge part of how we're all advancing as individuals and as a humanity. And it has also created certain deficits. So the same little 9-year-old who I'm like, you're the smartest kid. And then I meet his friends. I'm like, okay, you're all really. Also, there's a concern about like attention deficit, right? The instant gratification of I click and I like and this happens and that happens and I play this game and I'm overstimulated, right? There are all of these things. Yes, technology does contribute to that. I'm curious though, I just want to read this. The concept of instant gratification of manifestation or the stories we're creating for our future. Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure if I'm answering this how you're meaning it, but what comes to mind for me as I read this is social media in particular. Jason, you even mentioned this is related to like some of the books you've read, but social media in particular does present this idea of, yep, I just like very quickly manifested this great life. And now I live in Bali and I work 2 hours a day, but I live at the beach and I have millions of dollars and whatever. It's like amazing, cool. And thank you for showing me your beautiful life. And what really went into that? What struggles
Right.
did you face along the way? How many years have gone into this? What like traumatic breakup did you go through that compelled you to move across the country? There's always like more to the story. And yeah, I
Always.
think that technology, social media doesn't always show it all. Of course not.
Yeah, it's also important that you start looking at the stories that you tell yourself because we allow this information as we take in all these inputs to influence the way we feel about ourselves, the way we see the world and our place in it. And so you really need to unplug and take time for yourself and sit with yourself in silence to really gain a good, solid grasp of what it is that you truly believe is true for yourself instead of all this stuff that you're constantly being bombarded with. And this is what you should be thinking, and this is how you should be feeling. And if you don't feel that, then you're not a good human. And it's, whoa, slow your roll. I actually get to be the one to determine that. So I'm going to shut this off for a bit. I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm going to go for a walk, get outside, and start taking care of myself, make myself a priority because all this other stuff is too overwhelming and I can't fix it or change it myself personally. But what I can do is focus on myself and improve my life in all the different ways that I can. And then that ends up being that ripple effect throughout space and time, whether you recognize it or not, as you take care of yourself. And then you tend to take care of the people around you. And then they observe you taking care of yourself. And then they start doing the same thing. That becomes the epigenetics of your family line. And you pass that down and you end up stopping, preventing, mitigating some of the stuff that we end up passing on to others throughout the generations. So focusing on yourself and doing the work, it is that important.
Yeah. And just last thing on that, it's also really an invitation to trust yourself. I think I said
Yeah.
something on that earlier. Can I just trust myself enough to attune to what I really want rather than being so externally focused that I'm like, I want this and that because this is what I'm seeing and this is what other people have. Tuning in with the essence of who you are and the unique desires that are inherent to you and living from that. So it's just to Jason's point, this practice of going inward, but then of trusting what you find. Okay, like maybe I'll just use the reference I made earlier. Like maybe my life fact isn't live in Bali and work 2 hours a day and spend all the rest of the time at the beach, but maybe there's some like really cool things that are right for me that I know I want when I look with it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's perfect. Maybe that's just right for
Oh,
me.
I agree. It's important to recognize that it's okay to want things, to desire things, and to have them. It's absolutely okay. So give yourself that permission. Sheree says, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Sheree. How does all this introspective work fit in with dating or career building or working through any other priority?
Yeah, great question. So for me, it's about the back and forth. And Jason had spoken about this a little bit in the context of like, take an hour, make it time limited, do what you need to do, and then like return to life. It is, yeah, I'll just say it again in that same way. It's a back and forth process. So it's okay. Let's just say I'm just starting to date. Let me go on a date, experience that, live that, come home, glean any lessons that are available to me. Oh God, I was awkward the whole time. I was nervous the whole time. I really just wanted to go home the whole time, even though I know I want partnership, whatever it is. You glean the lessons and then you take the introspective time. So, okay, those are the lessons. And now what do I need to do? What do I need to do to experience them, to actually get what I need to get from this. And that's where we go inward. That's where we seek support. That's where we listen to people and learn from people. And then we integrate and then we go back out and do it. Okay, now I'm going to go on the next date. I already learned some lessons from the last one. Now I know not to do X, Y, and Z, or now I know I need to do some mental work before going. And then you learn from there. But you're very present to the experience. Okay, now I'm dating, or now I'm working on my career, or whatever it is. You live, you're present to life. And then there comes a moment where you then return back to self, back home to self. You information gather, you integrate the lessons.
No, I absolutely love that. Take the time to slow down, glean the lessons. It's not a race to commitment. Allow yourself to ask yourself, do I even like this person? Do they align with my goals, my values, and my standards for a relationship with me? That's where a pen and some paper really comes in handy. Right after that date, you just start writing things out. How did I feel? What was the experience? What was going on? Were they awkward? Did they give me the ick? There's all different things that you could be asking yourself, and you should, because you have to look out for you, right? Nobody else is going to do it.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you guys for taking my question. My question is, I wrote something down from the beginning of your discussion about divided energy and how sometimes you can be stuck in the way things are versus the way you're trying to put your energy towards change. How do you recommend dealing with that if you have an integrated life with a person or people that are not on a growing journey or a healing journey?
Yeah, such an important question. So it's a tough one in a sense, because I think part of it is that you have to be a little brave in realizing that if you're truly claiming your path and deciding for it, that anything can happen, right? Because we can't control other people. We have free will, but so do they. So we really don't know what will happen once we do really decide. That being said, I also am a really big believer in holding the highest vision that includes others. You have to do this with, as one of my mentors used to say, a very open hand. In other words, I'm not clinging to a specific outcome. I'm not demanding that this is going to happen, and I'm not assuming that it's going to happen. But it falls within the scope of my free will to include the humans that I love in my highest vision. So energetically bringing them in my highest vision, my partner, my children, or whoever it might be, they also choose a path of growth. They also choose a path of personal development, or whatever it might be. I'm inviting them in, allowing yourself to imagine or visualize what that would look and feel like, and then just trusting the path from there, holding the energy of, I trust that whatever happens from here is in service to my highest good. It's in service to everyone's highest good. It does, just to bring back this idea of bravery, it does require a little bit of bravery, because it's actually saying, I really don't know what's going to happen. I can't know. I just know that I'm choosing to live to the fullest. I'm choosing to walk my highest path. And then from there, I'm just trusting that everything else is going to come together. And that could look like a shift to relationships. It could look like, in some cases, an end to relationships. I ended up going through a divorce as a result of my personal growth journey. I didn't love that for me at the time, but on a long enough trajectory, I found that was actually completely right for me. And obviously, I don't know your circumstances, and I'm not saying that's what will happen to you. I know lots and lots of people who, one, either grew together, or two, the one individual grew and they learned to have acceptance for the individual life paths. I'm doing my thing, they're doing their own thing, and I'm figuring out how to get okay with that. Lots of words I just said, but I hope that something in there resonates and feels helpful.
That's a big one. I always ask this in my videos. Can you love them anyway? I think it's so important, because not everybody's going to be able to come along on this journey of self-discovery that you're on. That's your journey. The problem that happens often is that we forget to take the other person along with us. Now, is that your job? No, but I always encourage people, if you're starting a new relationship, to use the language of a shared mission and vision. What does that look like? What's the stuff that aligns with your goals, your values, and your standards for a relationship with you? And if somebody doesn't align with that in the very beginning, then that's actually a no for you. When's the first time that you ever said no to a relationship? Because we often get to this place of scarcity where it's, what if this is the best I can do? I hear this from coaching clients all the time. And I'm like, okay, what if it's the best you can do? Then what? You have to decide if this is the relationship for you and can you love them where they are? And if they never change over the next 50 years, is that going to be a problem for you in the long term? What I've recognized in my own life is that, yes, I can be loving and accepting and kind and empathetic to the people in my life that have not gone through some sort of significant journey in their own life, and they're happy with where they're at. They're content. But it also doesn't mean that I spend every waking moment with them. You choose the times that you spend with these people if it impacts your overall well-being or how you feel about yourself. But that's the boundary that you have to set with yourself and ultimately with them as well. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely true.
Christina, is that all the questions, guys? Feel free to drop any others in the chat. Hopefully we didn't miss any. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that covers them all. Also, I'm just noticing I am like the woman with just a first name. I'm usually these days using Zooms with my clients who obviously know my last name. So I apologize. I didn't add it. But for those of you who don't know me, it's Kristina Furia, Furia. You can find me on Instagram. My handle there is Your New Frequency. So I'd love to, there's such a beautiful, engaging audience. I'd love to connect with you guys. For those of you who are like, yes, this is great. I want to know more. Yeah, Kristina Furia, and it's Your New Frequency.
Guys, definitely give Christina a follow. And Christina, thank you so much for spending time with us today on the challenge. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome. Thank you all for being, like I said, such a great audience. And thank you, Jason.
All right, guys, give me 24 to 48 hours to get this broken down and put into a module for you. I will do it expeditiously and make sure it happens. So we'll see you guys real soon. See you tomorrow. We've got Annalee Howling up next. She's the author of Unapologetic. Her book comes out at the end of April or early May. So be looking for that, and go find her on social media too. Give her a follow and show some support. And make sure you come tomorrow with some questions. Thanks, Christina.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.